Hey everybody, this is Waytofail back with more Scrolls King of the Beta action as we're looking at Game 2 between Donkey and Lahopaa, where last time Lahopaa took Game 1 on the back of Bloodline Taint, overcoming the Undead Swarm of Donkey's Decay deck. And Donkey is coming back with a deck archetype I'm sure many of you have seen before. Yes, this is Mono Energy Ranged, where the star of the show is Bombard and everything else that spits out with it. Is there really a lot of variation from this deck compared to others that I've seen? Not as much. Maybe there. He does run 3 Tempest Reavers. He does run 3 Oculus Cannons. I see some people run 2. He does run multiple Furies. And Fury is a nice sort of complement to Bombard because it just lets everybody attack. Usually you drop a Fury when you know you're going to be wanting to end the game or clear the board, because either of those will be fine. Also has 3 Copper Automatons for kind of that bomb action. So Fury Copper Automaton could end up being a thing. But this will be interesting because Lahopaa is not going to be able to just rely on Bloodline Taint because there is a wider variety of creatures here. But is this a matchup that Decay is not going to be able to overcome? Because a lot of people have problems with Mono Energy Decay. But obviously the players here are top-notch in Scrolls. If anyone can overcome the monstrosity of Donkey's second deck, we'll see if Lahopaa can do that. And then who knows? There's one way to find out. Let's go ahead and go to the game. Alright, and here we are, Game 2, Lahopaa on the left, Donkey on the right. It's Energy versus Decay, everybody's favorite storm of fury and tears. So Lahopaa holding on to his hand, Donkey immediately mulliganing, and he can play a turn 1 Dust Runner, and he elects to do so. So right away, getting a kind of fast start here. Dust Runner does eat a lot of things in Lahopaa's deck, but right now his draw is still pretty decent here. Ilmire Tribesman is not going to be afraid of the Dust Runner, but he does have Soul Steal, which could play pretty nicely if he can get a little bit of damage on the board. So Donkey just going for his curve at this point. So just a simple 1-2. Protect the Dust Runner. He does have another Dust Runner to play. Spark as well, if he really wants to spark Dust Runner to get rid of the Tribesman. Maybe not the smartest play, but oh well, Soul Steal. Bye-bye Dust Runner. So much for that plan. So Lahopaa immediately being able to swing the board his way. But once again, Energy not as concerned with the early game. Decay not as concerned with the early game. I'm going to expect this game to go a little bit longer than maybe some other games in the tournament so far. Energy versus Decay does have a tendency to slog out sometimes, even if Donkey does have some cards to try and end this pretty quickly. So 2 Dust Runners is never exactly what you want to see unless you're Lahopaa and you have multiple Soul Steals. Also a Languid. So Lahopaa, with early answers at this point, moves his unit to protect against the Gun Automaton Menace. But Donkey getting one of the key cards here for Energy, especially range Energy, which is the Oculus Cannon. For those of you who do not know, if a unit moves into range, as in into the row of the cannon, its countdown is set to 0. And that can get pretty dicey with the Mire Shambler having a random movement, either up or down. And it looks like he does actually want to force the Shambler to go up, so that is going to make the Oculus Cannon's countdown go down. Looks like Lahopaa is kind of sacrificing the center of the board at this point. You don't want an Oculus Cannon early in the center of the board, but sometimes there's not a lot that you can do about it. So he does have a Bombard if he elects to use it. Don't need it this turn at all. It does have a Burn. Does have a Boom Reaver, which is just a range unit with solid stats. And right away, don't forget Oculus Cannons have Piercing, so that's an idol that's already getting down just a little bit. Languid will help just a little bit, still 1 piercing damage. And he does have Cursed Presence if he wants to play Ilmire Tribesman. Looks more like the way he's going to go, hoping for the 66% move down, and that's exactly what he got, because this does move a random tile every time it attacks. So Lahopaa, decent board, hopes that he can keep his Harvester alive, but 4 health versus Energy is not a lot, especially with the burn there on this poor Tribesman. Oh well. But Donkey getting some pretty decent cards so far. So the Storm Runner is going to be useful. Bloodline Taint, not as useful to Lahopaa as maybe it would have been other times here. He does have a Tribesman. He does have the Darklings, but those Darklings are more for direct idol damage, possibly to maybe end the game, but not too much use for them at this stage, this early, other than just tiny blockers, maybe deterrents here. So first, Tempest Reaver in here. And just to talk about the card briefly, it does have attack equal to the current energy. So on the left is current energy. That means this card has 0 attack right now. It's a good wall, and it is armor 1, which, what was I saying in the last game here? Poison is reduced by armor, at least as of this update, unless there's something gross that I missed, and I apologize if that's the case, but that means things like Bloodline Taint are not going to, or I always want to call it Bloodline Taint, but you'll need to use a curse or something to have poison damage get through, at least from the cards in the Lahopaa's deck. But he gets out a second Harvester. 2 Harvesters is pretty damn nice. this early, but unfortunately creatures have to die for things to happen with that harvester, and so far things are not dying unless Donkey dictates that they die. He does have 2 bombards. He does not have the resources to play a card then bombard, but he can Stormrunner bombard next turn if he sacks for resources. So Donkey kind of slow playing, setting it up here. Doesn't want to get kills to accidentally activate the harvester. He really wants to get rid of that harvester when he is able to do so. So Cursed Presence on the Tempest Reaver. Good start. Baleful Witch just to go ahead and take it out. And, I mean, some might say you want to take out the Gravelock Elder as well, but that Tempest, at least up there, was blocking some of the things there. And he calls that a weird misplay. Maybe he realizes he should have gone after the Gravelock Elder, or maybe he's realizing something that I didn't see there, because the Elder is present and his poor harvester is currently exposed. Not just exposed, Bombard is about to happen, and this harvester, 1 countdown away, is not going to be very happy about it. So we're exploding, and things are being shot. And this is the joy of ranged energy, is that everybody can just stay over here and casually fire their weapons. So Lahopaa getting 2 Necrogeddons, and I'll be honest here, Necrogeddon, not a card you want at this stage of the game. A Necrogeddon is not really going to do a lot here, other than kill your harvester. But with kind of the draws that he has, that may be the only play he's able to make here. So Copper Automaton and Burn as well. I mean, he can't burn at this point, but does he play the Copper just to try and get some kind of bomb here? No, elects to go for the Automata Forge. Probably the more astute move, as he has a very big threats on the board for next turn. So unfortunately for Lahopaa, it's Necrogeddon or go home. So he moves his units down here, sets that cooldown as much as he can. Wow, that is a very happy Oculus Cannon. Nice thing about Necrogeddon is that he gets multiple cards from the Oblivion Seeker. The only problem is that he has a bunch of husks that are on the verge of being killed very quickly. Although this line of units attacking is going to clear the top pretty easily. The problem is that all Donkey has to do is to move this Automaton up, and this Oculus Cannon is going to be able to leave only this husk with 1 health. And he does have another burn if he wants to burn a husk, but that's probably not the best idea here. He can start doing some idle damage. I'd say Donkey's pretty well in control. Once again, that's for people to say, oh my god, nerf Bombard. I don't know about that. But right now, Lahopaa definitely feeling the pain of only having Necrogeddons in his hand. And if I remember right from his deck list, he only runs 2. So, gets rid of him because we're not going to be seeing lingering spells from energy. Not with this deck archetype. Another Oblivion Seeker. Is this seriously? That is a sad turn if he only has an Oblivion Seeker to play. And then does something along the lines of Necrogeddon next turn. That's not going to be very pleasant. There's an Echomaton, excuse me, from Donkey. So that can help him ramp even more. That's one of the real benefits of that card. It's not ranged, but it helps you ramp. So you can just get more cards instead of the alternative, which is getting more resources. So Lahopaa, what can he do here? What can he do? He does have the Necrogeddon, and he is moving his units around. It looks like he is setting up for the play with the Oculus Cannon here. He does have some cards. He does have the Halls on his side if he wants to, but there's your Necrogeddon. Don't forget, you can move your units 1 more time after Necrogeddon. He is not married to this position on the board. Unfortunately, I don't think he can crack this Oculus Cannon, although it is languid right now. So he's just going for the bigger units here at this point. Once again, once that Echamation dies, Donkey will get a little bit more ramp. And Tempest Reaver is a very good defensive draw. Automata Forge is a very good defensive draw. He'll be able to drop both and protect his units. Plus have the Dust Runner up there. It's really valueless. It's just there to have an attack anymore because it must actually do damage to get its insta-kill. And it's not doing damage. As you can see, it can't even hit that idol. How sad. And once again, the pillages of Hired Smuggler is what's letting Donkey draw those cards. So he gets card draw on top of that. Once again, just a very solid all-around deck. And there's a Blight Bearer, maybe just a little bit too late. And no Bloodline Taint now, which could actually work okay with some of the automatons out there, but not really enough to be justified. So notice here, this still has 4 attack. A second Automata Forge. Interesting placement for that instead of putting it on the front line. But Donkey clearly in control of this game. Yes, Lahopaa does have plenty of units on the board, but they're husks. He's been forced to Necrogeddon twice, and those Necrogeddons didn't really put a significant dent in Donkey's forces. So while Lahopaa may have a lot of cards here, he's going to have to do a lot of work to come back. And right now he does have a Bloodline Taint, but once again, Bloodline Taint not the best ever. So Infectious Blight could be good. Where's it jump to? Oh, jump to the Copper Automaton. That is not... Oh, even Lahopaa. Lahopaa is like, oh, shit. That jumped to the Copper Automaton, so it's going to die anyway. And if I remember right, if it doesn't die to the poison, Infectious Blight just disappears. So that's not great at all. So, Machinated. And is this it? This is pretty close to it. As Dialects is sending me a note, so that's good. Thank you, Dialects, for helping to get this together. And here we go. Lahopaa and then Donkey towards the bitter end here. And unfortunately for Lahopaa, he does get the Bloodline Taint. He doesn't have a... Oh, he does have a Baleful Witch to trigger it. So he's going to get a lot of these things to go kaboom. But because of that 3 health, that's not necessarily enough. So Donkey very far ahead still. Lahopaa hanging on. So overall, very good. Oculus Cannon happening right away here. So that is a very dangerous looking Oculus Cannon too, because that just puts pressure on this bottom line. Yes, there still is 2 health here, but at this point, Donkey can kind of pick and choose what idols he wants to go for. At his leisure, Lahopaa is really going to have to try and tighten up his defenses here. Infectious Blight isn't even particularly useful at this point. As he gets the Ilmar Rodier as well, just trying to beef up his defenses down here. I mean, Donkey can just take out one of these 2 idols up top and call it a day. But he does have Fury. Fury, not a great card right now. Once again, Fury is a card you want to play to end the game because it knocks down everybody's countdown, not just your own units. So that's why it costs so little. So Echamation, once again, it's nice when you can just rely on your opponent casting spells. And Decay loves their spells. Really, I guess at this point, most all resources are pretty spell heavy at this point. But Decay, at least Lahopaa's deck does have a lot of spells, so it is pretty reliable for Donkey to try and get some extra oomph out of there. Now, Infectious Blight is an enchantment, so that's not the same. But Cursed Presence, that's a spell. Harvester, that's a spell. Baleful Witch, do your thing. Is that going to get the Harvester to trigger? No. So close, but can't get it done. Is it worth a Fury? No. Is the Cannonetta going to do anything? Maybe not right now. He does have multiple resources, and he can drop a lot of units here, but I mean, what does he do at this point? He is going to go ahead and pump out his units with his Automata Fortress, so that'll be 1-2 right there. And that is useful just to have the blank space up front to protect the Automata Forge. So I wasn't trying to criticize Donkey when I asked that before, it's just that's not what I'm used to seeing. Of course, if he tucks it down there, there's only one place he can spit units, and that's not always very useful. But regardless, that Automata Forge, we can now send it condolences, because it is gone. Meanwhile, Donkey suddenly having to stare down a little bit more formidable of a board. There's a Spark, which is useful, and he did draw a Burn as well. So that Harvester, which is ready to roll out, is not going to be doing a thing. So that is a big blow to Lahopaa's chances. Especially since Donkey does have a Bombard as well. And can he actually Bombard his way to victory here? Looks like he's going to hold off on the Bombard this turn, although he could potentially have the Oculus Cannon go through and take out the Rod Eater. And once again, that's potentially because he'd have to kill other units ahead of time. And you can see right there that Rod Eater coming back and getting a little bit stronger every time. So there is your Rattle Hem. Destroy lingering spells, draw 1 scroll. Not much more than a card draw in this matchup, unfortunately. But once again, Lahopaa has 2 Halls. You do not want Halls in this matchup right now. You want creatures. You want things that will do damage. And right now, the Infectious Blight's not doing a ton for him. Donkey getting out more creatures. Essentially, I guess you could say mono energy range. This is what it likes to do. You get a bunch of creatures on the board and then press your advantage with bombards, with haste abilities. And right now, because he let this guy get up to 5 health, now this cannon is going to take it out. Knock this aside. And Lahopaa, I hate saying it, but you're in trouble. Probably can already tell. So Cursed Presence once again, as that is a very hungry Echamation. But there's Infectious Blight, there's Baleful Witch. Lahopaa trying to get all of his combos to go. Still pretty much in mortal danger though. As the Infectious Blights are hopping around. He's going to need a few more turns before those become effective. But there's another Bombard. Bad news. Double Bombard. It's all Donkey has. It's all Donkey really needs. And it's essentially just like an extra haste for the hired smuggler as well. So that's another idol that's going to be down, and that's another idol that's going to be under threat here. So Lahopaa may not be able to clear with poison in time, and that's one of the issues of Infectious Blight, is that you have to wait for it to work. And if your opponent can just keep dumping out creatures, usually you say if it's growth, they can keep dumping out creatures. That's one thing, but here, ugh, not looking good for Lahopaa at this point, as he is using the Curse Mongers for Curse Presence as well. Just trying to kill everything he can to get his Blight going. Does go ahead and kill the Oculus Cannon. Wow, it is a rare sight to see an Oculus Cannon go down. But it is turn 22. But there, oh no, there's another Oculus Cannon. There's Bombard. And there is Donkey with the good game, well played, as we have the piercing damage is going to be enough to kill with here. But it looks like he's dumping his hand anyway. Doesn't even necessarily need to dump his hand, but it's not like he's really tipping off Donkey on anything that's unusual. So there's the Bombard, and there is the end. Lahopaa drops game 2, and this is going to be 1-1, and Lahopaa is going to have to select a different deck just to see if he can overcome Mono Energy ranged or not. But once again, good game, very entertaining by both players. Round 20, and then the Bombards were able to knock it out. Lahopaa almost coming back, but just not able to keep up with the creature dump of Donkey. So that's it for now. This is Waytofail. Stay tuned to Scrolls Tournaments on YouTube. We're coming up with, as you saw Dialects mention in the chat, not awkward at all, Game 3 coming up. See you next time.